Woke supremacy
I want to take you back, Representative, to before not just the 1-6 hearings, but the 1-6 insurrection. What was your relationship with Donald Trump like before all of this?
Well, after the election in 2020, I was the Republican conference chair at that point.
Right.
And we watched President Trump file lawsuits and allies of his file lawsuits, which of course was his right. But then we watched him lose each one of those ultimately. I think 61 out of 60.
Right, more than 60, right, yeah.
But by about the third week in November, I was growing increasingly concerned because we were seeing these press conferences where significant claims about criminality and fraud were being made by the president's counsel, but he wasn't producing any evidence.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I put out a statement saying, we're a nation of laws. You've been alleging criminality and fraud, and if you have evidence, you're obligated to produce it. But otherwise, your job is to enforce the rulings of the courts and respect the sanctity of our elections.
Yeah.
And it from there, obviously, became increasingly clear that he wasn't going to do that.
Did he respond to your statement in some way? Did he reach out to you?
I don't believe so.
Right.
I think that there were moments that we continued I think people thought, all right, well, maybe December 14th, when the Electoral College meets, perhaps that's going to be the end, which, of course, it should be. And after the Electoral College met, again, we put out actually as a delegation, Senators Barrasso and then Senator Enzi and I, together saying the election's over, Joe Biden is the president, and assumed, I think, at each step that Donald Trump would recognize his obligation, and of course he never did.
Now, I mentioned you voted with him a pretty significant amount of time. On the issues, you're okay with him, right? I mean, except for democracy. I know that's a little bit like, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? I understand that, but except for the issue that is now the issue, on the sort of more mundane votes that were cast in Congress, you actually didn't really have a problem with him from a policy standpoint.
Yeah, the place where I really had disagreements with him, and I spoke out when I did, was on foreign policy.
Right.
His statements suggesting that perhaps NATO was obsolete, for example.